Ever since I discovered that my God-given male member was going to give me no peace, I decided to give it no rest in return. Peter de Vries is very good on this. He says people used to be pagans and polytheists and believe in multiple gods, and then they started believing in one God, and they're getting nearer the true figure all the time. This is progress. What does the Buddhist say to the hot dog vendor? You doing it? Make me one with everything. As Jefferson said about religion in general. As Jefferson said about religion in general, that neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg. I don't mind. Do you know what the hot dog vendor says in return? Not everyone knows part two. Well, he makes him one with everything and hands the Buddhist a slathered dog. The Buddhist hands over a $20 bill. That's all he's got under his saffron robes. Munches a bit, waits. He says, no money is forthcoming. And he says finally to the vendor, where's my change? And the vendor says, change comes only from within. An early objection of mine to Christianity when I was at school was being told that I was a member of a flock. I don't know how you chaps and chapesses feel about this. I always felt flock was a bit much, although I know some people of whom it could be said. But shepherd, look, we know shepherds don't look after sheep just because they like them, okay? They either want to or fleece them, or eat them.
Have you ever prayed?
Once for a hard-on. And I don't know whether it worked or not. It's very touching for Tony to say that he recently went to a meeting that bridged a religious divide in Northern Ireland. Well, where does the religious divide come from? But if they'd listened to the atheist community in Northern Ireland, which is a real thing, and if they'd listened to the secular movement in Northern Ireland, which is a real thing, and I know many people who've suffered dreadfully from membership in it, not excluding being pulled out of a car by a man in a balaclava and asked, are you Catholic or Protestant? He said, I'm Jewish atheist, actually. He said, what are you, a Protestant Jewish atheist or a Catholic?
And it goes like this. It was early last September. As near as I remember, I was falling down the street in drunken pride, when I fell into the gutter, thinking thoughts I dare not utter. And a pig came up and lay down by me side. As I lay there in that gutter, thinking thoughts I dare not utter, a fair young maid came by, and she did say, you can tell a man who boozes by the company he chooses. And at that the pig got up and walked away. And the pig got up, slowly walked away.
For years, people have been coming out on talk shows with alcohol and hiding it. Not you.
Not I.
They like put it in a cup like this. Chris is proud. He's like, this is scotch, fuck you.
Look. Well, the New England Journal of Medicine says at least 2 drinks a day for the heart and the bloodstream. Yeah, and if water rots the soles of your boots, what do you think it does to your intestines?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Fish is fucking it, as Mencken used to say about water.
Right.
One of the pleasures of heaven, because it's always been rather hard to describe them, you ever noticed that? Eating foie gras to the sound of trumpets was the Reverend Sidney Smith's best shot. We know what the Muslims think for men. Apparently for women, do you know what they get? They get their husbands back.
Is that heaven?
Nothing man-made about that, right? So, like a good Methodist, George Bush says the following: I've done all I can with this argument and with this conflict. From now on, all is in God's hands. That's quite different, I think. Would have made him a perfectly good Muslim, as a matter of fact. Combination of fatalism with a slightly sinister feeling of being chosen. Anyway.
The pilot, it's an easy takeoff. He slumps back, tells the passengers the usual stuff, then throws the microphone back hangs it up, and says to his co-pilot, geez, well, that's over. All I need now is a cup of coffee and a blowjob. But he hasn't hung it up right, and it echoes down the cabin. So one of the stewardesses Did you see that Senator Kennedy, by the way, on the Stewardship Act of the Prevention Treaty, referred to it as the Stewardess Act 3 times before it was taken out of the congressional record? That's actually true. So the stewardess, hearing this and panicking from the back, runs up the aisle to tell what's happening in the cockpit and alert them. And as she runs up the aisle, someone shouts rather heartlessly, "Hey, lady, don't forget the coffee." This is the longest joke I know, and I'm giving it to you. It's a kind of a free gift. Anyone who remembers this joke will know how to tell it at any length from now on. You can build in new wings to it and new extensions to it if you want. I'll give you the condensed version. Picture, if you will, the romance that kindles between a young man and a young woman. Her eye is first caught by his extraordinary courtesy. He will always take her coat. He will always open the door. He's always unfailingly polite. He's a man of extraordinary consideration. He finally talks her into the sack. You can build in the extensions later if you want. So extraordinary is the convulsion of pleasure to which he brings her, and the attention that he pays in order to bring this off, if you will, that she lies hardly daring to speak and says, I never knew that it could be this way with a man and a woman. I just wish there was something I could do to please you as you've pleased me. And he says, well, as a matter of fact, there is something you could do if you cared to. And she said, well, just name it. And he said, I kind of wish you'd give me a blowjob. And she says, no, I wish you'd said anything but that. Something tells me that if I do that, it won't be the same between us. You won't respect me. You won't admire me, esteem me, revere me in the same way. You won't defer to me. So he's a gentleman. He takes it very well. This is the first date. It goes on like that. It goes on like that for for a year or so, and it's always the same. And you can do your. And every time she says, "I can't tell you," and if only, and he says, "Well, actually, since you mention it," and no, but she says, "You won't. You just. I know it won't be the same. You won't respect." They get married. The honeymoon night is a torrential tribute by him to her, of every conceivable attention. But in the meantime, always the door held open, always the taxi door held open, always the coat taken, always the deference and the tenderness. But even on a honeymoon night, she won't. She just won't, because respect is a big thing. The 10th anniversary comes. See how I'm leaving you the room now. The silver wedding. I think we're talking about the pearl anniversary. He takes her to Cancun or Cayman Islands, I don't know, somewhere beautiful. The finest suite, the limo, the thoughtful, well-chosen gifts, the door held open, the attention, the courtesy, and the unfailing pleasuring. And finally, she lies back and she says, again, in a dream of bliss, "You've given me all these decades of love and care and tenderness and sex. And I just wish, if only I could, requite this in some way." And he says, "Well, you know what? I know I've mentioned this before, but if you could just see your way to..." And she thinks, really, why not? What can it hurt? So, in what is still an almost maidenly manner, she falls to, she does her best, and it's pretty good. And then it's over and she thinks, no, that was wonderful. I should have learned to please him like this before. And I should never have worried about his attentions, his courtesy, his deference. And they're lying there unable to speak in this dream of mutual assurance, and the phone rings. And it rings and rings and rings and keeps on ringing in their suite, and he says, "Aren't you going to get the phone, cocksucker?" Well, it's been real, and you've been very patient, and I salute you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.